Hey, welcome back everybody to Let's Talk. It is a series where I talk about something neat and cool and that you probably did not know. Been a couple of days since the last episode, and originally I'm planning to talk about Twisted Metal 3. Since, it is another bad game for the installment, and conveniently, this is the third episode on Let's Talk. So, how about we talk about something else today? I'm going to talk about F.E.A.R 3. Now, before you click off the video, let me ask you this. What is horror? When you are talking about horror game, the horror genre itself can be split into many categories. Well, according to Jesse Lennox, one of the writers of Digital Trends, horror games can be split into 4 subgenres. You have a survival horror, where the games like Resident Evil really fit in. This subgenre typically forces the player to survive being with the limited sources and puzzles are up in the air. The sheer fear of running out the ammo or health kit, leaving you defenseless and making the player come up with something different to go through each level. On the other hand, stealth horror is the opposite. This subgenre usually removes the player's ability to fight back in any shape or form. Great games like Amnesia, Outlast, or FNAF can fit into these categories. The horror came from the scary entities that are in the game itself. The only way for you to beat the game is either you run or you hide. Aggressiveness it is not an option in this subgenre. What about the horror that is heavily involved with the storyline? That subgenre falls on the psychological horror. Omori are a great example for this subgenre. This genre focuses on mental, emotional, and psychological states to frighten, disturb, or unsettle its audience. Now lastly, action horror is the usual go-to for players. To put it simple, this game is like your typical action game, but plays in the horror theme setting. This game usually filled with the jump scare here and there, but it probably will leave the player with a slight jump and then move on, because you feel more powerful than everyone just because you have a Glock 15 on your hand. Now that you understand the subgenre, the question is, can a game have more than one subgenre? Absolutely. Left 4 Dead 2, the game with action horror, but also a survival horror. Phasmophobia, survival horror, but also psychological horror. But where does F.E.A.R 3 fit in? Well, let's talk about it. Keep in mind, before we continue, this video will contain spoilers to the series. So, I highly recommend you to check out the game by yourself. For those who want to stay, let's continue. F.E.A.R 3 is a game developed by Day One Studios, now known as Wargaming Chicago Baltimore, that is well known for developing games like World of Tanks. The game was released for Windows, Xbox 360, and PS3. And in 2021, the game was added to Microsoft Backward Compatibility program, making it playable on Xbox One and Series X or S. What makes this game great is that this is the only game that features co-op as well as built for co-op gameplay. I will talk about this later. Mild spoilers for those who want to know about the game and want to play the game. So, the game story revolves around the fictional F.E.A.R unit. F.E.A.R is an acronym for First Encounter Assault Recon, an elite group in the US Army tasked with investigating supernatural phenomena. When a private military company's secret research program goes wrong and a dangerous and powerful psychic is unleashed, F.E.A.R are called in, with the players taking on the role of the newest recruit, Point Man. However, it soon becomes apparent that there's much more going on than a rogue physic, as Point Man finds himself facing a lethal and unpredictable paranormal menace in the form of a young girl with extraordinary destructive power, also known as Alma. The F.E.A.R series is heavily steeped in the supernatural, with Alma providing the mask of these occurrences. Throughout each game, Alma causes hallucination in the characters, oftentimes related to her history. Her psychic influence is capable of driving normal people into madness and can overtake the minds of the others who exhibit unnatural abilities. Alma is capable of drawing characters into an Almaverse, an alternate version of reality born of Alma memories of her horrific treatment at the hands of ATC. By the events of F.E.A.R 3, the Almaverse has broken into the real world, causing monsters representing Alma fear and pains to manifest all over the city. Like what I said previously, F.E.A.R 3 was built for co-op gameplay. The game has two endings and the endings depends on who scores the highest, or as the game puts it, the favorite son. Just like as the first game, F.E.A.R 3 has an abilities mechanism. Players can play as Pointman or Paxton Fettel. These are the protagonists and antagonists from the very first game. The controls are pretty much the same as the first game, as well as the ability to slow down time. Not to be confused with the bullet time, as this does not improve your character reaction time and can shoot faster. This one is just purely slowing down the time. In addition, the new playable character Paxton Fettel can assist Pointman by using telekinesis, stun, possession, and much more. When you play co-op, whoever hosts the game will be Pointman, and whoever joins the game will be Paxton Fettel. But if you're in the single player, you need to finish every single level or chapter to play Paxton Fettel. Oh, and you can unlock the insane difficulty by finishing the game at least once with any difficulty. Anyway, the character's abilities are somewhat limited and can be upgraded via ranking up level. Talking about ranking system in this game, this is a brand new edition and only available in this game. This ranking can be done either on multiplayer or a single player games, whether you play online or offline. Doesn't matter. You can gain EXP to rank up by finishing the challenge on each level. I'm not going through every single one of it, but you can check out the rank/challenge screen and find out the details by yourself. Unlike the first two games, this game is the first and last game that does not have any health pair mechanics. The game introduced the regeneration mechanics, so this means that no more medikits and no more armor system. The game also introduced the new cover system that is literally no one ever uses since you can duck anyway. The game also has generative system, meaning that the game can create random events to increase the feelings of isolation and unpredictability when playing alone or with a friend. This means that the game will offer a new experience each time the game playthrough. For example, the game can create alternate route to go through, and even with more random events and scare. Oh, also the game features legendary films John Carpenter and writer Steve Niels. Since the game was released in 2011, the game doesn't have that big system requirements. With this kind of graphics and gameplay, you'll be surprised by the fact that the game only needs 4GB of storage. With all the elements and what game can offer, what went wrong? I mean, surely there's a reason why the game sales were disappointing and the franchise has been hiatus ever since its first release. Honestly, after going through all the research and the review, I can conclude that many people were quite disappointed because of the story and the plot overall. People were also disappointed by the fact that the game now felt shorter than the previous game. And to be truthful to you, I can't blame them. Let's start from the obvious one. The game is short. Yes, you heard that right. You can finish this game in a day. As a matter of fact, I think you can finish this game under 5 hours. It is all because of how the game works. If you're familiar with the Rockstar game design, as I previously mentioned in my Grand Theft Auto 4 video, go check them out, I worked on that video for like 3 months. The game can be broken into one thing, which is going from point A to point B. For some reason, F.E.A.R 3 is heavily designed this way. Well, technically the first game was also this way, but remember how the game mechanics works? The game does not have any health and armor system. Instead, the game introduced us with a new regeneration system. It sounds good on paper, but using this essentially removing the ability to survive and fight. Since the game does not have any penalties for you to go and skip everything, you can literally rush in and hit that checkpoint without worrying about your health and condition. There are some couple sections where you have to finish the enemy in that area before continuing, but this only happened like 3 times throughout the game. Meanwhile, in the first game, yes, the game also has a point A to point B system. But this one works because the player really depends on the health kit and armor and can actually die from it. To further prove this point, remember, you can play as Fettel later. And you can literally skip to the checkpoint by just possessing the enemy and run to the checkpoint without even advancing the fight. Essentially teleporting around faster and literally finishing the game quicker. Because of how the game resets your health every time you possess someone, the game also has no cooldown on the possession. The only thing that holding you back is if you die during the possession. Your abilities will drop to 0, and if you're in the middle of the fight, well, good luck. But instead, you can burn out yourself and possess another body and kill the others to gain more abilities and just move on. By doing this, you also skip the amount of scares in it. and you obviously aren't going to stop paying attention to the details because of it. The graphics are even better than the most AAA that come out today. Yikes. The story is not that bad. It is still continuing the previous plot. In fact, this game took place 9 months after the event of F.E.A.R 2. It is not as bad as people said, it is not boring, it is a good way to close the book in the F.E.A.R universe. How about the fighting mechanics? I say better than the first game. You have a cover system which replaces the good old leaning left and right. You can sprint now like the previous game, but this one is better. But even so, I feel it wasn't really enough because there aren't that many weapons to play with. You either going to be stuck with a pistol or SMG, and for some reason, that's the only weapon that the enemy is spawned with. So, if you found the best gun like SHV, penetrator, or the nail gun, you're going to end up not using any of it and wait until you face either small boss or just a big enemies. But now, there's an enhanced power armor. Yes, you can ride Mecha Robotic Gundam, yes. There's only 2 though, but it's good. And if you're playing with Fettel, you have to possess some enemy first before riding this powered armor. Don't worry, as the game won't decrease your ability bar while you're in the mech. There's also 4 different multiplayer modes. Each mode allows up to 4 players. In Soul King, all players have possession ability and are unable to bear arms. To win, the player must possess enemy NPC and collect their souls. The winner is the player with the most souls at the end of the match. In Contraction, player must defend a base against a series of increasingly difficult enemy waves, working together to collect resources, construct barricades, and revive one another when necessary. Additionally, Alma is a presence on the battlefield, and if a player attacks her or keeps her in a fight for too long, that players die. In the freaking run, player must fight their way through enemies as they move towards an extraction point, all while running from Alma, a wall of death. If a player killed by an NPC, their teammates can revive them, but if the wall consumes any one player, the game is over for all players. Soul Survivor, like Contraction, sees the players defending against waves of enemies. However, in this mode, one of the players is randomly corrupted by Alma at the commencement of the game, and the player goal is that to possess the other players before the time limit expires. When a player is possessed, they too become corrupted and work to possess the remaining players. To win the game, a player must survive until the end of the round without being possessed. The game has a collector edition which included 18cm pregnant Alma figure with a glow-in-the-dark fetus, F.E.A.R 3 comic, and unlockable in-game gun hammer. The game also has a pre-order bonus which is a new in-game weapon, the Shredder. These 2 weapons are not usable in campaign mode, however, only in multiplayer. One thing that I found and no one else talked about it is how the game actually runs great. Unlike any other AAA or recent game, you don't actually need to set up or tweak anything in order for the game to run better. But if you're using an older graphic card, you might have to tweak 2 things. Number 1, switch into Direct9 by adding -D3 D9 in the parameter or by opening the option.cfg in the game folder, and then delete the hashtag. If that doesn't work, try to turn off the motion blur and the push to talk by also deleting the hashtag in front of the motion blur and the no PTT. This issue usually caused by outdated graphic driver, so better update it. But if you have a modern hardware, you will run this game with no problem. After all that we talked about, where do we put F.E.A.R 3 in the sub-horror genre? To answer this question, I feel like F.E.A.R 3 has fallen into action horror, sub-horror. That's it, nothing else. Meanwhile, the original F.E.A.R has fallen into action horror and survival horror. This is where the game is missing its feeling, and that's why the game felt more challenging back then. The game isn't a bad game, it's good. People really compare this game to a Call of Duty because of the mechanics and how you can melee people with the knife instead of butt from the gun like the first 2 games. Unlike the first game, melee in this game somewhat have an emphasis, where you literally can slide from here and there. As long as you aim the enemies, you will hit the enemies. Just like GTA 5 and their melee, where the character is just sliding to the NPC so it will hit. The replayability for this game is there, and it's fun to play with someone in this game. Just go in and shoot the enemies here and there. There's a lot that I want to talk about, but I cannot spoil everything, and instead I want you guys to try it by yourself and judge it by yourself. That's it for me for now. Let me know what you think on the comment below. If you liked what we talked about today, go and press like on the video. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Comment down below if you want me to talk about something that you think is worth to talk about. Thank you for the support, and thank you again for listening to today's talk. and hope you guys have a good day today. See ya.